That's right.
We're live. Welcome to another episode of 10 Horse Mining YouTube channel, Tuesday Night Live. We were just talking about fishing, man, before we went live. Thanks for everybody showing up. I got messed up on the link. I apologize. It looks like everybody's finding their way over. Normally, I set these up from my wife's laptop, and last night I thought, well, it'd be nice and convenient to not have to go all the way upstairs and grab the laptop while I'm downstairs on the PC. And so I set everything up downstairs. And when I get here with the laptop, there's nothing on there. So I had to scramble and send out a new link. So anybody that's out there that's on watching this right now, and you know some people we're looking forward to tonight, send those people the link so they can show up, because
they can still go to YouTube though.
They'll still find it. I reposted it, so it should be good. But I'd already made some social media posts with the wrong link, so I'm sure there's people right now going, "Why isn't the show coming up?" I deleted it, but. Yeah, Dion, you're talking about that Angry Pirates tournament. I went over to the local lake today, and I pulled up, and there was 10 boats in the parking lot today. Yeah, it's Cedar. I'm like, doesn't anybody work anymore?
Not until Illinois.
I figured there'd be 2 people there.
Yeah,
and 10 doesn't sound like a lot, but 20 is the full parking lot. I caught a few fish. I probably was doing. I went over there with the mindset of throwing a frog and punching.
Yeah.
And I threw that frog for a while. I got 3 blow-ups on it, and then I just started punching. And next thing you know, I'd cover like 17 miles of grass and had about 10 bites. And then the sun was setting.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. We need that cold. We need that water to get down there about 70, 71.
That's the whole problem right now. I guarantee it.
I saw 82 degrees.
That's my opinion of it.
Yep.
Yeah, my opinion of it right now. What's kind of holding these fish back, because the shad have already kind of made their move. The gizzards are kind of up on the banks in a lot of places, but the bass just ain't up there with them yet. And I think the gizzards are more length of day, helps them move. They know what time of the year it is. They know what time they're supposed to be in there on the shore and stuff like that. And I think they've already kind of made their move in there, and then water temperatures in the 80s, so the bass just haven't followed them in there yet. They're not up there yet. But this weather that's coming in happens, it'll probably loosen things up. There'll probably be quite a few more fish move up and be up there where you catch them on the top water and catch them shallow, doing all kinds of different stuff probably.
Absolutely.
They've been biting. The BFL that was here 2 weeks ago, it was pretty good. We caught a lot of fish. The Bassmaster Open that was here, that kid caught the stew out of them. It was a good tournament for about 10 guys. About 10 guys kind of busted them pretty good. And then the Toyota, basically the same way. There's 6 or 7 guys out of that field that crunched them almost every day. So they're wanting to bite, pretty bad. And they're also getting a lot of fishing pressure right now too. Peyton was fishing on the low end of the lake in the Toyota, and the top 10 day, he ran to where he was fishing on the low end of the lake, and there was a 60 boat tournament going out of the cove where he was starting in. He said he rounded the corner and there's floating lights everywhere, and he thought, oh, this is going to be great, and Lawson was going completely the opposite direction, and basically the same thing happened to him. And that's what happened to the kid that won. The kid that was leading it, after the first 2 days, there were some other anglers out there in another tournament that, found out where he was fishing, and by God, they took care of his spot the last day,
Really?
Which it's a big lake. It's going to happen, but you take a guy like that, normally 16 pounds a day wins this time of the year. And, he had 39 pounds after 2 days, so he was whacking on him pretty dang good,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyways, and like I say, fishing was not that easy. The overall field made it look like, oh yeah, they're catching them a little bit. really it wasn't. It wasn't an easy tournament at all. You know, it was kind of hard. You know, just like me. You know, I caught 2 the first day that weighed 7, and the second day I caught 4 that would have weighed about 8. You know, so it wasn't easy at all. You know, by any means. You know, it was kind of just one of them really. You had to root around to catch everything you caught. You know, and you had to fish real clean. You know, to make a good tournament out of it. So, you know, but by this weekend and the Big Bass Bash, if we get just a little bit of cool weather and 2 or 3 of them cool nights in a row, they want to be biting. They want to be shallow. You know, so I think a lot of this is going to change between now and when those guys start fishing this weekend.
So on an Ozark lake, what does that front that's coming in on? I guess it'll hit you guys probably midday on Thursday. That rain that's moving in, will that rain kick up the bite for the day, be slack on Friday, and then really turn back on Saturday? Or how will that rain affect it?
It just affects it positively in every form and fashion, you know, because the water temperature is too warm right now. You know, for this time of the year, that water temperature should be in the 60s, you know, or right around, you know, hovering somewhere close to 60. And instead it's 80, you know, it's close to, you know, it's 80, or it was, you know, when I fished the Toyota just a few days ago. You know, it needs to be lower than that. And like I say, the bait fish are reacting the way they're supposed to because of the time of the year, and the bass just aren't up there yet because, you know, it's just too warm. You know, the water temperature is just too warm for them. So everything's kind of in confusion a little bit. And like I say, if that water temperature cool down a couple degrees, get a good cool rain, a couple of 3 cool nights in a row, they're going to start biting. And when they do, it's probably going to be awesome. I mean, we had a big weekend. The weekend before the 2-day super tournament was one of those crazy weekends where they just bit. I mean, the fish was, you know, fishing was off the chain. It was crazy. You know, Jim Dill weighed in 5 that weighed 26 pounds. And there was probably 30 other 20-pound stringers caught that weekend in tournaments. And, you know, and here we thought, oh man, it's going to be right by the time our tournament got there. And by the time our tournament rolled around, it was back to, you know, 32 pounds to win, you know. And so that's kind of the way that goes. You know, they just, you know, if you can catch 15, 16 pounds a day this time of year consistently, you're going to be right there at the top of the ladder most of the time. But like I say, they want to bite. They're there. They're ready to go. You know, they just need a little bit of the right weather to go ahead and spark them into doing it.
Absolutely.
Well, it shows it.
And the moon last week.
Uh-huh.
The moon was as big and full and pretty every night. You know, good, calm, clear nights. And that moon's great big. Those fish still feed at night a lot, you know. And our lake's abnormally clear for this time of year. You know, it's clear from one end of it to the other. Compared to normal, you know, this thing is really, really clear. So therefore, you know, the dadgum fish are feeding all night long too, you know, so that makes it hard. That means your feeding window during your daytime tournament is small. You know, it's only an hour and a half, 2 hours, compared to where, you know, most of the time in the daylight, you know, you're going to get a half a day where they're going to bite. You know, out of your 8-hour day, you should get 3 or 4 good hours. Well, when the moon's big and full like that, you don't get that. You get an hour each day when they bite during the day. And the crazy thing about it is normally it's about noon. You know, normally it's, you know, about 12 to 1 o'clock, you know, they'll spark in to bite a little bit. But like I say, there's a lot of, I can come up with all kinds of excuses for you. They just didn't bite that well. You know, they didn't bite that well. I didn't keep up with them. I didn't have anything deep going at all, you know, and I should have. You know, I should have worked a little harder at that. I've been working quite a bit, spending less time on the water, and you know, that's why my 2 sons both made the money and I didn't. You know, it's because they had a little something to fall back on. You know, when the shallow stuff didn't happen, they had a little bit of deep stuff to go to. So that's kind of what took place. in the last week or so. But if I was fishing the bass, it would probably still be shallow. You know, I would take it head on, just like I was planning on before. It would be a top water glide bait, you know, big swim bait, maybe even a big spinner bait some, you know, but it's going to be done shallow, you know, because that's where they want to be, you know, this time of the year, and they're just not there yet. So every day that goes by, there's going to be a few more filter up there shallow, you know, and normally when they do filter up there, they're pretty stupid, you know, they get dumb right off.
It sounds like we're going to have the perfect storm for the bass this weekend.
It could be. It very, very likely could be, you know. If you'd have told me it was going to be last weekend, I'd have thought, ooh, it's going to be ugly. You know, there might not be many big ones caught, you know.
So what do you think it'll take?
Oh, it'll still take 6-pounders, you know, of course, because the lake's full of them. You know, Payton caught a 6-pounder both days of a Toyota. You know, Lawson had a 6 the first day and a 5 the second day, you know. So, you know, I know of guys that had, you know, 6-pounders and stuff in the Toyota tournament, and it was abnormally tough. So, you know, there's still going to be 6-pounders caught, you know. To say that there'll be a 7 or something like that, it can happen at any given minute. You know, I've always thought that it should take a 7-pounder to win every one of them. You know, here about 4 or 5 years ago, Lawson caught a 10-pounder this time of the year, you know, and it was gigantic. It was truly a 10-pound class fish, you know, and it was big and healthy. And that's the thing right now, if you catch a 5 or a 6-pounder right now, they're beautiful fish. I mean, they're almost like they're built like they are in February. They're just big and fat and round and really pretty. So, you know, I had a 6-pounder the first day of the tournament. You know, I only had 2, but one of them was a big one. And like I said, the big one I had was just a big, beautiful fish. So I mean, they're in good shape, you know.
To reiterate what you're talking about, how the fishing's been kind of up and down there. Congratulations to Travis Harriman for winning the Toyota Series. And I was just looking at his results. I know you were at the weigh-in when I was texting you, and he had 20, a little over 20 on day 1, and he had slightly over 18 on day 2, and he had 1 fish. On day 3.
Yeah.
1 fish for 4 pounds.
I bet he was puckered up tight coming into the weigh-in.
Yeah. But that just shows you how you can catch 8, you know, you can catch 18 and 20 and then 4 if things don't go right.
I felt so sorry for him standing there, you know, and
oh God.
And I really thought, you know, as the weigh-in progressed, I thought, well, you know, he's going to be out of it. There ain't no way that everybody's not going to catch him. And only a couple guys caught him, you know, and made it a kind of a horse race out of it. I figured that Cody Huff would be one of those ones that would weigh in another 17, 18 pounds, something like that, you know, because he was live scoping them, you know, using active target and he's exceptional at it, you know. You know, I knew my boys weren't probably going to catch the caliber stringer they needed to win because they were a little too hung up fishing shallow like I was, you know. Not that they can't catch them better than me shallow, but the way the fish were biting, I couldn't see somebody shallow coming out of nowhere and beat me, you know. So that's kind of the situation there. I figured it would be a live scoper if anybody beat that kid on the last day, and like I say, Cody almost did, but like I say, that kid caught him awesome. The first 2 days, you get that close to 20 pounds a day on Lake the Ozarks in the fall, and that's a feat. That don't happen very often.
Well, and like you were saying, Gabe, like you catch 2 stringers like that back to back. I mean, you're running away with it going into day 3, right?
99% of the time, yes.
And I mean, you got to think he didn't burn all of them on day 1 because he caught 18
he
pounds
only
on day
needed,
2.
He only needed 4 pounds to win the tournament.
Yeah, but you don't know that going into it.
I mean,
you know, I've won these 2-day events this time of the year. I've won several of them between Toyotas, Ever Starts, the 2-day BFLs, my sons have won them and stuff like that. And it always ends up 32 pounds in 2 days. That's just the way it is. It's always 32 pounds. When Payton won year before last, he had 34, and that was exceptional tournament. He had a bang up day the last day, so it always ends up pretty close to the same every time. 16 a day is a really, really tough average to come up with. And like I say, that boy catching them 2 days in a row like that, I thought, oh my gosh, I felt terrible standing there waiting to see him come in, because I thought he is doomed to fail. There's no way he can do it 3 days in a row. And when he come walking up through there, I thought, yeah, dog, it did happen, but it happened for different set of reasons, because supposedly one of the guys that had come in on his little area won their other tournament too. So one of the guys that was on his spot when he got there had 16 something. So
he got pirated on the third day.
So he probably would have blown it out pretty handily if he hadn't got jumped. But that's going to happen. There's too many tournaments happen on this lake day after day. And to say those guys didn't know where he was at, in a good way, they may have. They may have found those fish just same as him.
Right.
But anyways, it's just the way it goes. Sometimes.
That happened with the NPFL this past weekend too.
Did it?
Yeah. Was it Trent Palmer who was leading going into day 3? It was somebody in the tournament. That saw him on live and went into the spot and caught his fish while he was live scoping them. Fishermen are so close anymore in talent. When you go to talking live scoping stuff, everybody's on the same wavelength on that, and stuff like that. Everybody can do it. I mean, right. I'm no exception to the rule. I can do it a little bit. You guys can do it. Hell, about everybody's got it anymore, and if you're not doing it, you're not learning how to do it, you're backing up, dude. I hear some of these guys gripe and complain about it. You know what? Yep, I'm a dinosaur. Simple as that. I always have been. I'm a dinosaur. I want to do it the way I used to do it. I want to do it the way Guido did it. But you can't do that. You're going to become extinct. So you gotta just step up to the plate and learn how to do it and move on. That's evolution. It happens. Did everybody think the fishermen were not going to get better? So there's no need to complain about LiveScope. You might as well just get on board and figure it out and get better at it, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. And like I say, am I for it? Not any more than I'm against it, but it's just one of them things. Facts is facts. They're not going to do away with it. It's not going anywhere, because you have, such mega money going into the electronics corporations throughout the whole industry right now because of it, so it's not going away, and the crazy thing about it is it's not going away because of crappie fishermen. Bass fishermen got very little to do with it. You Right.
want to know the people who spend money on LiveScope and stuff like that? It's crappie fishermen. They've all got them. I mean, I've seen boats that didn't cost as much as their electronics do, and it's because it makes it easier. It makes it so much easier, so, get on or get out of the way, one of the two. That's your choice, and that's coming from a guy with a lot of gray hair. I'm going to tell you right now, but, and I have guys ask me, well, what would your dad have thought of it? My dad would have thought it was the coolest stuff ever, for one reason. Who would ever thought that we could actually visually look at them with our locators close enough to get our baits right next to them? How does, there's some little Poindexter looking dude with a, with his little pocket protector and all these ink pens poked down in it, a big old pair of thick glasses. Holy crap, look what he came up with. That's amazing to me, that they've taken technology to that level,
Well, your dad was your daddy was a tinkerer too. Like,
oh, absolutely. My dad loved cool stuff.
right.
Cool new stuff, absolutely.
Probably wasn't afraid to try something new either.
Absolutely not. He would have had tackle made for it already.
Right.
He would have had baits to make that better already, and like I say, now the industry's catching up. You're starting to see a lot of baits that show up better on your screen and stuff like that, and different kinds of stuff that you can put on your bait to make it show up better, these guys with these battery companies and stuff and explaining and showing how, that piece of electronic needs its own battery, to clear that screen up. That's crazy. 25 years ago, we would have never figured that all out, but now they do, it's a whole different ball of wax, it's crazy to think about. And it works. Simple as that. It works.
I mean, heck, you got more screens on your boat than you probably had on your TV more TVs than you had in your house 20 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, check this out. So we were talking earlier. I fished the BFL Kentucky Lake, and I fished out of the back of a boat a guy who was phenomenal at scoping and catching fish. He ended up winning the tournament, which, by the way, it's going to be a really good video. I got the okay to do some video, except he has a top secret prototype bait that he was fishing that I have to kind of edit that out. So I'm going to have my hands full on that. But he caught the snot out of him. He has something you're talking about in crappie fishing, how they've affected the bass fishing. He has something on his boat that I haven't seen any other bass fishermen have, and it's the brakes. So on his power poles, he has 2 trolling motors. He has a trolling motor on each power pole. And so it was amazing to watch this work. So he's scoping, he's moving. Basically, the way it worked was he had waypoints. He was just fishing isolated pieces of cover. We hit probably 60 spots that day. But he would lay down, shut down, and ease, just kind of drift towards his waypoint, which was a little brush pile or a little stump or something. And when he saw it on 80 foot out there, when he saw it, he would lower his power poles down. They were parallel to the water, and on those power poles was 2 little trolling motors, but they're blowing reverse. So when he got within 60 or 50 feet, whatever he felt comfortable with his cast, he hit those trolling motors on the back and their brakes, and they stopped his boat instantly. So it did 2 things. It allowed him to move and cover water fast at a pretty fast pace and not have to worry about drifting into the brush pile. And it also allowed he didn't wash the fish out. So normally in that situation, as you're going forward, you're going to have to turn that trolling motor around and hit it to stop, or you're going to blow all that water towards that brush pile. With the brakes on the very back of the boat, all he did was hit those, and it stopped him almost instantly. And it worked too. Well, I mean, you just be moving along, and all of a sudden he just hit them, and boom, we just stopped. And then he cast.
That's like crappie guys 101 right there.
Yeah, I know. The first one I saw was like 6 or 7 months ago over on Lake of Egypt. There's a guy over there who's a guide that has those on his boat. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I started looking at it, and they're brakes. Well, This guy's got that. So that's something that you're going to see coming out. I'm sure people are already getting them set up on their boats and stuff. These people that are LiveScoping, it was a huge advantage. I mean, if that's what you do, if your deal is going out there LiveScoping, that's a big deal to have that set up like that. But it was cool to watch. It was cool to watch somebody who is a master at their technique and perform really well doing that.
Yeah, it's you got to see it from all angles. That's for sure. Co-anglers don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like the LiveScope at all. And the crazy thing about it is, we have to take care of those co-anglers. Those co-anglers are who buy tackle. That's who buys bass boats and stuff. And like I say, this is one of those deals where, it's one of those deals where it's not going to be good for everybody. The guys up north, They say they're having a hard time filling them with co-anglers, filling the tournaments, the BFLs when you get to Michigan and stuff like that, because all of those guys are LiveScoping, and by doing that, their co-anglers catch virtually nothing, standing in the back of the boat. It's hard for them to catch fish, and as you can watch these weigh-ins and stuff, it's the same way, when you see a guy that's LiveScoping, his partner's not going to have many if he's lucky enough to get one, so, but anyways, it's lots of people got their opinions. I really don't. I don't care about it that much. I know you got to have it somewhat. You got to have it, on your boat. You got to be ready to use it, But, to say that I'm all aboard, I'd like to see them mix it up a little bit, have an old timer tournament, every now and then, one a year. You don't have to give us half of them, just give us one a year, where you can't use that stuff or something, something cool, a fun tournament. That's the thing. Back in the day, Bass used to have those little fun tournaments, mega bucks, they had had that deal. And that was kind of a fun deal, just the way it was set up with the different holes, the Superstars tournament, stuff like that. About once a year, they would have a little, just kind of a fun deal, and it would be cool to see who would win those tournaments, that old timers tournament,
How was that mega bucks set up? Who qualified that? I know I've watched those before on TV. It's a really cool concept. Top 10.
Take top 10. Top 10 anglers fish the final day, and you have to start in certain specific holes. They'll have a section of the lake that's sectioned off into 10 different spots, and you get so many minutes in that hole to figure it out, and then you have to move to the next hole, the next spot. So
it was just a rotation of holes, right?
Yeah. Yep. And the rotation was a random draw. So, you didn't want to fall in behind Nixon, because Nixon dominated the thing. He won all of them. So, but just a typical heads up, no holes barred bass fisherman. One of those guys that figures it out on the fly every day he goes out.
Man, that would be all day. That would be so cool. I don't know why they won't do that. I mean, so you got 4-day tournament that after 3 days, the top 10 or top 12 fish a mega buck style format. That would be sweet. And
you got and it would be awesome, so much easier to track it now. I mean, you could put it up. There could be a chip they put in your graph, and you circle this hole, and you can't go outside of this boundary, and you just bebop through your route.
Yeah. I mean, it was a cool deal. It was a unique situation.
The more we talk about LiveScope, were the weights that much lower 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Oh, I'm not saying that it's making the weights better.
Okay.
It's just changing them. It's changing who's catching them is a lot of it.
So the fish are still shallow, right?
Well, no, not all of them. A lot of these guys are fishing out there a lot deeper than they used to.
Right.
Those fish are always there. I'm a firm believer there's fish that never see the bank, right, and there's fish that never leave the bank. You have all different kinds of bass. I mean, you have some that are shallow water fish. You have some that are deep water fish. All this is doing is exploring that open water. That open water's a little bit easier to explore. Get out there and look around and find stuff that you can actually catch.
Right.
So that's all it does. It just opens up your fishing, your lake. The reason they're catching these giant crappies in those crappie tournaments and stuff like that, they're fishing for them where they've never been fished for. They're catching crappie that's never seen a bait before, possibly. Right. And when you do that, I mean, you're gonna find them bigger, easier, dumber to catch, because they've not been fiddled with quite so much. Them ones that live around a boat dock on Lake of the Ozarks, they've seen a Hibdon hammer jig. Okay, they know what they look like. All right, and if they're smart, they're afraid of them. A little bit. You just got to keep that all in mind. Those are fish that have never seen stuff before. because they never get fished for, So is it a unique deal? Yep, it really is. It's kind of cool. You go to lakes like Table Rock where the bulk of those fish live out in the open. By golly, now you can go out there and plunk around and find them, and know that you're throwing around them and stuff like that. So, that's the situation there. You're looking for them where you never have.
Oh, no, I get that 100%. What I was getting at is, I think tournaments. I know tournaments can still be won on the bank.
Oh, absolutely.
And what you're telling me is the weights haven't changed in 20 years.
They always will. I mean, your fish aren't changing.
Right.
Just because they're catching them differently doesn't mean they're changing. No,
I would
the same fish you're chasing.
I'd say some of the smallmouth tournaments, the weights have gone up.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Up north and stuff, because they're just able to just pester them.
There's a lot of reasons that's happening, though, too. Invasive species has changed the way smallmouth grow. So,
gobies.
Gobies.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of minnows and stuff
that's a good point.
That they didn't have before and stuff. So you can't really throw that out there that LiveScope has brought us to a different fish. No.
Okay.
Those ships have brought us to a different smallmouth to catch. Okay.
Right.
Those minnows that come out of the ballast of those ships, from other waterways and stuff is what's changed the smallmouth. The smallmouth are just smart enough. They're so greedy, they're going to eat whatever they can find. Okay. And so that's why they're growing. They're growing because they're eating everything they come across. And some of that new stuff's, high protein, makes them grow fast.
Right. I just think if they're, I'm with you, Dion. I have no qualms whether LiveScope is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened. I think it's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to the sport. But if there was more dinosaurs, like self-proclaimed dinosaurs like yourself, fishing on the major tours and less LiveScopers, you'd start seeing more tournaments won on the bank again. But if you had 50-50 LiveScopers versus flippers, you're going to see more chances for a flipper to win. But now we have the new hotness, the next new thing, and everybody's got it, like you said, and everybody's proficient at it. So it's going to be one using that technology. If it was 50-50 split where you had guys that didn't really give a crap about catching them out there in 30, 40, 50, 60 foot of water over nothing, then you're going to see a lot more guys coming up there and catching them shallow.
It's not ever going to be the same.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because the teachers are dying. I can't put it any other way. The teachers are disappearing daily. The great anglers of our time are going by the wayside. They're getting out of the sport. They're getting too old. You can't say it no other way. They're getting too old. They're behind in the times. This is a new way for these young guys to go catch them straight out of the box. That kid can finish high school and have the knowledge to go take one of those units and go catch bass on the elite tour. Okay. It's not like it used to be where, you had to have a little bit of help along the way to get over that hump to where you could actually, basically compete with these guys. I had my dad forever. My dad was my teacher, simple as that. And so I kind of had that by the butt. It wasn't a big deal. I had him teaching me every day. Every day I was on the water. These guys can literally pick up a book or watch a YouTube video and go out and catch a bass now. Okay. Now, used to be that was a little bit harder to do. Now it's one of those deals where, you can physically put an eyeball. Oh, there he is. He's standing right there. Mm-hmm. It's not, well, the wind's blowing out of the north today. They should be on these southern shorelines where that wind's busting in there a little bit and got the bait fish pushed up on there. No, that's got nothing to do with it anymore. Now all we got to do is go look this back and forth, just like this, with that trolling motor, back and forth. And then you go, oh, there he is. Oh, wait, there's two of them there. You understand? That's the difference in in the day and age, and the difference in the people. Now you don't have to have that pre-existing knowledge to make you a great angler. Okay. And it's because you're taking those guys and you're throwing them out there and you're throwing them in with fish that some of the places never been messed with. They've never been fished for real hard, and so you're throwing a bunch of really, really good fishermen who are very, very tech savvy into a situation where you're making them go look where they're easy to catch also, no, it's never going to be like it used to be. And anybody who thinks it can be is, oh yeah, you are a dinosaur because you're not even thinking straight, because it's never going to come back the other way. It can't.
No.
It can't. It has evolved to this, and it's never going the other direction. Will there ever be another great Dion Hibdon out there? No, there never will be.
What? And that
because there's no need.
Well, that next generation doesn't have. They're going to lose that skill
that's what I was going to say. Like, so if you take somebody that, let's say somebody that was 12 years old in 2015, 2016, which is about when the first gen of LiveScope came out, and right off the bat, his dad got it, took him out in the boat. They were catching fish 8 years ago on LiveScope.
Right.
Well, he's 20, 21, 22 right now. That is what he knows. He knows how to go out and just bypass everything you just talked about, Dion. He doesn't need to learn any of that stuff that we all learn, the roots. That doesn't matter. Why would you do that when you can just
look at a TV
side scan, mark a brush pile, drop your trolling motor, look, is there a fish in there? No. Pull it up, run. If you're disciplined enough to do that, and that's how you learn to fish, you're going to cover a lot more water. You're going to be more efficient. You're casting at fish all day long. The odds are you're going to catch more fish. Somebody like me that grew up old school and is adapting to the technology, I still go and look, but I still want to make a couple casts in that brush pile. Even though I may not see anything, I just want to kind of bump on it and just to see if something maybe is in there that I can't see. Well, if you don't see it,
you don't trust it.
It's not there. I trust it, but I still like to fish.
Right.
I still like to fish, right? And I don't. And I'll get sidetracked. I'll fish that brush pile, and I might wander down the bank a little bit. I might make a couple flips in that grass, and I might see a lay down and do that. Where somebody that's learned to just fish with LiveScope, they're going to make those few casts or not, and when it's done, they're going to pick up the trolling motor, run to the next spot. So they're covering a lot more stuff. Where I kind of have to. I like to still explore a little bit.
Well, that next generation's never going to learn how to skip a dock. They're never going to learn how to, punch a mat. They're not going to know to throw a frog up there in the slop, because you can't see them in the slop. You can't. They don't care about that. But the one that I think about is the technical stuff. You talk about like the greatest skippers, and we got one of them on with us tonight. I mean, backhand, forehand, however you want to do it behind the back, he's going to skip a jig underneath the dock, and he's going to put it where he wants it to be.
LiveScope don't make you skip jigs.
No, you don't need to.
You're going to have to learn that stuff.
But do you need to, though? If you're out there,
it depends on
in the
lake.
middle.
It depends on the lake.
Well,
there are times when the bigger, better fish are up underneath those.
Oh, docks. Absolutely. Absolutely.
A lot of that's in the spring.
There's always going to be tournaments. There's always going to be tournaments where it's tit for tat, this and that. I found myself the other day standing there watching, waiting for my kids to weigh in, thinking, wow, the LiveScoper going to win this thing, or is somebody going to win this thing old school, under a boat dock? And it got one under a boat dock, for the most part, so I was tickled to death. Would I have cared if Cody Huff would have won? No, absolutely not, because I know Cody Huff is at the top of the food chain in that class of guys. He's one of the best at it.
Right.
So it's one of those deals that, I just, I can't not root for the old school type of ways, but, what I do with skipping, I feel like it's one of the most natural things that a fish can ever see in the water. If you're a kid and you've ever went in a creek and turned over rocks to catch a live crawdad that's what you're doing with skipping, is because the water is shallow where you're throwing it. And when a crawdad skitters away, he kicks that tail. And as he kicks that tail, it pushes him to the surface most of the time. And it looks like he's skipping along the surface. When I skip my jig in there, that's what it looks like. It looks like that crawdad escaping. So most of the time, I feel like I'm fooling that fish before he ever sees my lure, before he ever knows it's a jig or anything else. He just sees that motion on the surface. And he knows, by golly, that's a crawdad. Somebody got too close to a crawdad. I'm going to get it, before it gets back to the bottom, and it's just a very natural thing for a bass to see. You're going to have some of everything, a little bit. Is there ever going to be that many guys like us left? No, there's not. They're going by the wayside. Day after day after day, they're going by the wayside. I'm tickled that my boys have got to see it both ways. I mean, honest to God, I couldn't be more excited that my sons are doing well in the sport, and they got to see it both ways. Okay, because that's important to me. I spent my whole life, trying to be better at something than everybody else. My dad was better than the fishermen he fished against. And it was knowledge. He got out there, he worked at it, he fished, he spent a lot of time on the water, and he obtained that knowledge through days out there, just figuring it out, and figuring out that when his jig slid across the surface like that, that looked good to a fish. That was something that a fish is used to eating, and so it's just figuring that stuff out still means a lot to me. And it, as it does, you got guys, like you say, your guy figured out a lure that you just got through fishing with. He won the tournament on a prototype lure thrown at LiveScope. Okay. He'll figure that out, and he's figured it out. If it changes LiveScopes for the better, then so be it. He has done something great, for the sport. So it's the way it is. It's the way it's going to be from now on. I want to get off of this subject so bad because I can't condemn it.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't want to jump on the bandwagon with it either.
Yeah.
Let's answer some questions about fishing. That's something somebody wants to know from me.
I agree.
If you're talking to me about LiveScope, you are barking up the wrong damn tree. All right, because I know just enough to be dangerous.
That's why we ask you all these interesting LiveScope questions, because you're gonna have a story about it, I promise.
Oh yeah, and it's probably not going to end up well. Some of them, but the whole thing of it is, you got to get on board or get out of the way. One of the two. God love Randy Blockett. Just get out of the way. I mean, because they're coming. We can't stop them. We can't stop them. There's no need in trying. It's not going to change. It's going to continue on this route that it's taking right now. Trust me. I lay in bed at night and stare at the ceiling, thinking, "Well, I wonder how it would change." It's not going to, and there's no need to try.
No. Not only is nobody going to stop it, it's already 400 miles down the road, and the dust is already settled where you're standing at if you think you're going to stop it.
Absolutely.
It is so far beyond stopping at this point, because it's what you said when we opened this conversation. It's all about the dollars and cents, and that's 100%. Why do we have 21-foot bass boats with 250 horsepower engines on them? Because the money's there. Why do we have $400 reels and $500 rods? Because somebody's willing to spend that kind of money. As long as the consumer buys the product, there always will be a product to buy. As soon as we say, "Ooh, whoa, I can't spend $5,000 on a trolling motor," then it's gone, or the price goes down. One of the two things is going to happen.
I work in a tackle store.
Right.
Okay. Part-time. I work in Bryant's Osage Outdoors Tackle Store in Laurie, Missouri. Okay. I have people walk in and will bitch about spending $40 on a new crappie rod. But when you tell them what LiveScope costs, oh, okay, we got to have it. And that's exactly their attitude. That, you know, they won't spend $40 on a far superior fishing rod, but when you tell them they're going to spend $6,000 to get the ultimate setup on their boat for LiveScope, oh yeah, okay, well, you got to have it. Yeah. And that's the attitude in this day and age. They'll buy a piece of electronics that costs more than their whole damn boat cost,
right?
Just to make it the fishing better, and they'll use a fishing rod that is, you know, makes you feel like you're numb from the neck down. You can't feel nothing with it, you know. But it's one of those deals. It has changed. Don't worry about it. Just let's move on, you know. And that's the way it is, you know. And I see it daily. Every day, you know, somebody walks in, you know, well, what would it cost me to, you know, to get set up with LiveScope, you know, and, you know, and you stand there and you tell it to them, and before the conversation's over, they're figuring out how they're going to skip a couple truck payments to buy LiveScope, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's like the good old days back when you were traveling more, back when I was growing up and you were just getting into the big tournament fishing game. And I remember seeing it at one of the tournaments I was at in college, or on my way to in college. And it was a brand new Ranger. Brand new. It was pretty. And it was an old wood grain station wagon pulling it that had no business pulling it, that probably was paid for and probably got about 3 miles a gallon pulling it.
His boat was worth 10 times the price.
But that boat was woo-wee. And
yeah.
We made fun of it then, and we're making fun of it now. We're just making fun of it in a different light.
That's right.
So
he had his priorities.
Because that guy probably still has that boat, and I bet he's got LiveScope on it.
I guarantee you that. Yeah. Absolutely.
The station wagon's got 500,000 miles
yep,
now,
yep.
probably.
That's right.
Let's get off this.
Snagging down, everything else. Yeah.
Hey, I want to say one more thing real quick, though. Darren Wilson said, yeah, Jake Lawrence was the guy I fished with. He has spent more time, just as much time with LiveScope as somebody that has mastered the craft of skipping a jig or whatever technique it is. That's what I wanted to say before we get off this. Everybody's got that technology. Not everybody's winning with it. And it's because it's another technique. And it's just like anything else. You have got to go out there and you've got to put the time in and be disciplined to learn it, because there's little intricacies that you have to learn. And the only way you're going to learn that stuff is by totally committing yourself to it. So, you know, I hear people complain about LiveScope. It's not just the price. People will buy it and still not be able to catch fish on it. I mean, you catch crappie on it, but you don't catch them all. You don't catch a lot of them. I mean, I messed with it today. I threw it a ton of fish, and I only caught a couple on it. But you got to know there's a lot of intricacies to it. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, that kind of stuff. And that just comes from experience. So these people that are out there like Cody Huff, they spent thousands and thousands of hours mastering that craft.
Just like Dion spent thousands and thousands of hours
skipping a jig. I wanted to ask about Guido. I did a tube video not too long ago, and I remember years ago the Gets It tube and your dad, for me, made that popular, and skipping it around boat docks and stuff. Did he use it? I can't remember. Did he use a spinning rod, or was he using a bait caster when that kind of all started? Because to me, he's the one that put a tube on the map for me, anyway.
It was primarily a spinning rod in the beginning.
Okay.
You know, and he was no different than anybody else. We went out west. You know, we went out to Lake Mead, Nevada, and fished the U.S. Open out there. And we're sitting there. I'm too young to fish. I'm 14 years old, sitting there in the registration and in the meeting. And he says, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if I draw Bobby Garland?" Because at that point in time, Bobby Garland still fished out there, you know, and he said, "I'd just like to spend the day in the boat with him, you know, because I know he uses a spinning rod a lot, and so did we in a lot of things, and needless to say, he didn't draw him boat number 1, he drew him boat number 2, and they fished all day long, and they chased fish around in buck bushes. Well, not buck bushes, salt cedars out there in the desert. They're tumbleweeds, basically, is what they are. Um, but there was a lot of bass up in them, and they basically chased fish around all day long, spooking them out of those salt cedars, and they'd get out in the open and they'd get to heading down a path, and they would throw a little tiny tube, a little 2.5-inch tube out in front of them, and make them bite it, but that's back with the old style of jig heads that were on the outside that, made the bait spiral to the bottom. That was way back when, 8-pound line, 8-pound monofilament, and that's how they did that. Dad came home realizing that this is just something we have to have. You have to use it. And we started using them, started making them, a variation of colors, because way back when Bobby started, there wasn't a large variation of colors. They were all just little minnow-y shaped, minnow colored, grays and clears and stuff like that. That's 90% of the colors were real drab, just little minnowy colors. And we came back, and Dad says, "Oh man, we got to make a better variety of colors in that thing," and we started using it, started changing the heads around and the hooks, and how we were going to rig it and different things, but yeah, 99% of it was done on a spinning rod back in the day. Spinning rod, 10-pound line. This is long before braided line ever came down the pike. If Dad would have had braided line from the get-go, yeah, he would have dominated everything, but he was still using 10-pound line while Denny Brower's in there flipping 30, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Dad had the right bait to make them bite every day. He could catch them every day. There was never a time of the year when he wasn't going to catch them.
He had a few line twists, I bet, too.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, but we had ways of doing away with that, getting rid of that for the most part.
What would you use, a swivel or?
No, we just stretched our line a lot too.
Okay.
Stretched it behind the boat a ton. In between going from your third spot and your fourth spot, let out 100 yards, drag it behind the boat when you're moving. Yeah. When you get there, wind it back up, and it's straight as a string again. Retie and go back at it. We carried lots of rods. We'd carry extra rods. If one got twisted up too bad, we just put it away, get out another one. And there was specific monofilament made for spinning equipment too. That made it better. So we were big fans, big guides. Big, large diameter guides. I'm pretty sure we had the first 7.5-foot spinning rod that anybody had ever seen, stuff like that. We took it to the next level to try to make it better, what we were doing, I ended up not winning the Bassmasters Classic on a spinning rod, but I could have fished the spinning rod the whole time, wouldn't have been no big deal. Cause that's how I caught them the first 2 days, was on a spinning rod for the most part. But the last day I chose to, use a bait caster the bulk of the day. And I knew the fish weren't as far back under there as I had to cast, so I knew I could get it in there with a bait caster too. So I used it so I could use a little bit heavier line. But it's just one of them deals. Yeah, we used a spinning rod a ton. And it was that's a art form. That was a dying art form way back when, and nobody wanted to do it. Everybody wanted to go heavier, bigger, longer, and here we were still using a 6.5-foot, 6'3" Daiwa. One of Dad's favorite Daiwas was a 6'3", and it was his tube rod. That's what we caught him on, and we fished it for many, many years, and caught lots and lots of bass. Still to this day, you can, catch them on it day after day after day, but nobody does that anymore.
What was like I'm curious of what your dad's lineup would have been just on a typical day back in, he would have a tube But what would be some of the other baits that he would supplement if they weren't biting on a tube when he went out?
Oh, he threw a jig. He threw a jig a ton.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first time he won Angler of the Year, he caught 398 pounds of bass in the season, and he knows that he caught 390 of it on a jig with a crawdad on the back of some form or fashion.
Huh.
Yeah, he caught 8 pounds one day, and he caught them on a tube. But the rest of the whole season, 398 pounds he caught on a jig that year. Okay, in some configuration. I mean, a jig was our deal. That's what we did. You know, we throw them little teeny tiny jigs. We throw great big jigs. You know, we made a jig for whatever you needed it to do, for the most part. But you know, like I say, we did a lot of things back then. You know, to catch fish. You know, my dad's won 4 or 5 tournaments on a crankbait. You know, and you just don't even hear about that. You know, nobody wants to even talk about that. You know, and stuff like that. So
what was his go-to crankbait then?
A square lip most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we were some of the original Bagley square lippers back in the day. That happened a ton right here in this part of the world. The Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma area. That's where that square lipping got popular, you know, and it got popular big in part because of my dad and a lot of stuff.
Did he build any of them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Him and Jim Bagley were best friends.
Okay.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Him and Jim Bagley were best friends. Half of the stuff that Bagley makes in this day and age, you know, still came from him and Dad sitting and carving around on shit and making stuff look good.
So was that a bait that was designed specifically for, you know, smacking into laydowns? I mean,
sure.
Was there like a hole in the crankbait lineup and say Bagley and your dad, or I'm not sure who invented the square lip, but you know, they say, hey, we need to come up with crankbait that does such and such.
It'll bounce off the stuff.
Right.
Something that you're not hung up all the time, you know. You know, way back when it was a spinnerbait.
Right.
It's just what people throw around brush. You know, you throw the spinnerbait around the brush, or you pitch something into the brush. You know, and that was it. That was your only options. You didn't have swim baits and stuff like that. You had a spinnerbait, you know, and that's what it was. Well, along comes guys like Rick Klung and stuff like that. They want to manipulate that a little bit. They don't want to just come winding that thing through there. They want to wind it through there, bump it into something, and keep going, you know. And so, therefore, they started making crankbaits that would do that. So, you know, it's one of those deals. I am so proud that I got to grow up in this sport when I did, because I got to see it. I got to see these guys, the innovation of so much of the tackle and everything, you know, and like I say, it was out of necessity. They built it because they needed it, you know, and they designed it because they needed it to do a better job doing certain things, you know. You know, you have some baits that were perfect straight out of the package, you know. You want a cold water crankbait, you tie on a shad wrap, you know, simple as that, because it was perfect. Just a little old tight wiggle, doesn't do much. It's perfect. You know, that's what it's supposed to do when it's cold. You know, those minnows don't do a lot of dodging and darting around. No, they just paddle along, just ever so gently, you know, and that's what a shad wrap does. Still to this day, that's one of my favorite crankbaits to have tied on, is a number 7 shad wrap. You know, I probably catch as many fish in that in a season as I do any other crankbait that I've ever had tied on. It's just a great bait. You know, it's a great cold water bait. You know, DB3s and stuff like that got invented for that next level, you know, that 8 to 10 foot class, you know, stuff like that. They had to get something that was going to go a skosh deeper. It needed to dig harder right off the get-go. So they had to change the angles of the lips and stuff like that. It was very, very cool to see that stuff come from Jim Bagley in a box to my dad. Here, Guido, try these. See what this does, you know. And like I say, the neat thing about this, some of them worked. You know, some of them worked and some of them you are fishing with them today, you know.
Yeah.
So like I say, it was very, very cool to me to get to sit around and watch my dad work with this stuff and mess with it. And like you said, my dad was a tinker. He loved to make fishing baits. He loved to make fishing baits, catch fish, you know, and he probably would rather do that than actually go fish with the lure. And a lot of people don't understand that. But you get a lot of gratification if you make something that will actually fool one into biting, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that's there's no bigger high in our sport than to know, man, I just fooled his ass. You know, that
Yeah,
he did
right.
not see that coming. You know, and he did not understand that was not the real deal right there. You know, and you know, my dad explained a lot of that stuff to me. You know, the Gator bug catches them for one reason: what it does when it's sitting on the bottom. When it sits on the bottom, it's as likely an imitation as a crawfish as it can be, because the last thing that happens before you reach down and you grab a crawdad, he throws them claws up in the air. And claws go up in the air, and it's funny because God did not let this little crawdad know it don't work. Okay, he's really going to get eat when he throws them claws up in the air. That just makes a bass go, yeah, you're getting it now. But a Gator bug on the back of a jig, just when them claws raise up off the bottom, that's just a big old come hither to a fish. You know, that is the perfect deal. But
Still your favorite fish trailer?
Every now and then you got to let that jig set on the bottom so that them legs can rise up off of the bottom and look good.
Yeah.
And
secondary action.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, it's just like a Cinco. You know, you look at a Cinco and you think, oh my gosh, that thing doesn't look like anything, until you watch it fall and you see that little tail just barely give it that as it's going down. That's what makes that fish go ahead and get a hold of it. You know, it ain't that what it looks like. It's that one little tiny motion back there at the back of it, you know, and it lets that fish know, oh, that's still alive, you know, and I'm going to eat it. And like I say, growing up around my dad and having him explain that to you, you know, and explain those little things that made a difference, you know, a Carolina rig. Carolina rig is a chase scene on the bottom of the lake. You know, that is a minnow following along, and there's something on the bottom kicking up dust. Something's down there crawling along through the bottom, kicking up stuff off the bottom, which is your sinker. And then here's a minnow thinking, oh, I'm going to get some of that, you know, whatever that is. And then along comes the bass, you know, right behind him thinking, oh, he's not paying attention, you know, and he is an easy meat, you know, a shaky head. You know, a shaky head stands up on the bottom and the little tail sits back there, you know, and just wiggles just ever so slightly. But it's standing, you know, the head is right down on the bottom, and that little tail, little straight tail sitting back there wiggling. That's a minnow feeding on the bottom. Guess what? He's feeding on the bottom and he's not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? That's easy prey for a big old bass to just swim down behind him and just scoop him up off the bottom. That's why you don't miss many fish on a shaky head. You don't miss them because they eat it perfectly. The hook is standing up and they go right over the top of it. It's, you know, it's just the ultimate mousetrap, you know, for the most part. You know, and we've been using a shaky head for a long time, many moons, you know, but we didn't always fish it weedless. You know, we fished it on a jig head on a worm.
Yeah,
you know,
jig worm.
Yeah, just a jig worm. Simple as that. There's so many of those things that's so easy to recognize and to see, but a lot of times we overthink it and we think, oh, why did they? Oh, now I understand. You know, now I get why they bite that.
Yep.
Well, that makes perfect sense. You know, and you know, you just gotta have a dad like I had, you know, that could actually explain that to you. Hey, dude, that's a minnow not paying attention. You know, and that looks perfect. You know, pull your old jig along the bottom, and you finally ease it up against a rock. Oh, there's something. Let it set. By you letting it set and giving it a slack line, them legs finally creep up off the bottom just a little bit. You're making him look as appealing to a bass as a jig can look. Simple as that. You know, I have guys ask me all the time, well, how come you don't use pork? I do use pork. I use pork a lot, but I'm always moving it. You have to move pork to make it work. Okay. Rubber, you don't always have to move it. Rubber floats and stuff and does some of that stuff by itself, so you got to take into consideration, when you're using jig trailers and stuff like that, you got to use the ones that are right for your situation. A lot of guys just, oh, well, as long as it's green pumpkin, it's okay. Yeah, sometimes that's true. And it is true a lot, and when I say that, there's lots and lots of times where, green pumpkin's good enough, but there's lots of times when it does need to paddle, it needs to swim as it goes through the water, Probably one of my favorites right now is a Bojangles Z Daddy. It's got just the right kind of flex out to the side, but when it paddles, it's got a real easy paddle to it, a real easy swim to it. Everything that swims in the water is not real vicious. It's not real just paddling and getting the hell away from everything, or trying to hide.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's more subtle than what you want to let on. And every now and then one of them jig trailers comes along that it's just a little bit better, And like I say, that Z Daddy's a really good trailer for me. I catch a ton of bass on it. And do everything with it, I swim it a lot. I skip it under docks, let it sink down on the bottom real easy. It's got a good flat side on it, so it skips easy. That smoke pole worm, it's real popular now. And all it is a cut tail straight worm, a straight worm with a cut tail on it. Well, that cut tail looks like the tail of a fish. And when it sits there on the bottom on a shaky head, that little tail just sits and just waves back and forth real easy, and it's nothing more than, it's just a good natural thing for a fish to see. It's a good worm, and it's a good worm because of what it does. It's real subtle motion, that you have secondary triggers.
That Bojangles, I've been hearing a lot about that company lately. Is that a company it's from the Ozarks area? What's the background on that?
He's always kind of been in the Ozarks. He started out in crappie stuff, in a lot of crappie stuff, a lot of really nice crappie baits. But it didn't take him long to realize that he needed to be more than crappie, to make a good business out of it, and not that crappie is a bad business. It's not. You sell the hell out of crappie baits, but crappie baits and crappie fishermen are very fickle. Okay, they get one they like, one that's perfect that they like, and then they don't want to use nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Where in bass fishing, guys want to try different stuff,
Right.
And so you got a little bit better variety of lure selection when it comes to stuff like, selling baits. There's a lot of good crappie companies out there that sells one or two baits. They sell one bait in 3 different sizes, where in bass fishing, you need different baits. You need baits that are crawfish imitations. You need baits that are swimming trailers. You need different stuff. So that's kind of why you got to have that type of stuff. We believe in it. We fish it a lot. Lawson and Bo do a lot of work together on colors and stuff. They come up with a lot of nice colors. They do basically everything I fish with in the boat. Lawson and Bo come up with it for the most part. I just string it on and go out there and catch a fish on it and try it.
You show them how to use it is what you do.
I do show them how to use it. I'm not my dad. I will tell you that right now. I could give a crap less about sitting around tinkering with tackle. I want to go catch a fish on it. If you show me how to catch fish, I'm hooked. I'm ready. I'll be the next guy standing in line to make them the next day. But, I want to fish with it. I want to catch it. There's some jigs that I found boxes after my dad passed away. I found jig boxes made full of stuff he's never had wet. He's never even thrown one in the lake yet. but it's different designs and different stuff like that. And you know, and it's just stuff that he just took a notion. Hey, I think I want to put this hook in that head, you know, or I'm going to file around on this head style and make it where it'll come through the brush a little bit better than this one will, you know. You know, everybody thinks, oh, well, your dad grew up throwing a little ball head. No, he didn't. No, it wasn't exactly just a little ball head. No, it all had his little file marks on it in some form or fashion that made it work better than everybody else's. You know, he just didn't tell everybody everything on a lot of his baits, you know, until he was done with it. Till he was ready to sell it, you wasn't gonna know everything about it. Simple as that, because that's just as cutthroat as it can be. You know, if my bait catches better than your bait, I'm gonna beat you, you know, sometimes. And he was big on that. He wanted his stuff to work better and to fish better. Simple as that. I see this one question at the bottom. When are we going to come out with a finesse jig? I got bad news for everybody. We came out with the first finesse jig, all right? And it got hijacked along the way. And that was not a good deal, but it happened. And we kind of lost interest in it. We make them that we fish with ourselves quite a bit. And we are probably going to come with Baitworks at some point in time and make a little finesse jig, you know, a small one, you know, 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce, something like that. You know, am I in a hurry to do it? Nope, because the hammer jig is working. It works. I mean, it hooks them. You know, between Lawson and Payton figuring out the right hook in that head, if you're not throwing it, that's too bad for you. That's all I can tell you, because it is the best one out there right now. I mean, and that's coming from a guy who's caught a lot of bass on a jig in my lifetime. And like I say, I hook a lot of fish on it. I don't miss a lot of fish on it. When I pull into him, if I feel any kind of weight at all, I land that bass. I get him in the boat. I mean, you know, and you know, you don't come in at the end of the day and say, oh well, you know, if I'd have caught them other two that I lost, I don't even talk about that anymore, because I don't lose them anymore. You know, I'm not saying that I haven't, and I haven't lost some, because you do, but for the most part, I sure don't lose them like I used to. You know, I went from catching probably 80% to I'm in the high 90s now. Simple as that. And it's because of the hook and the head design. It just works. You know, it awesome. Works. 99% of the time, he's stabbed in the roof of the mouth. And when you stab one in the roof of the mouth, that's where you want him hooked, because he can't get rid of it. You know, simple as that. Because that old hard part in his mouth up there, and that hook penetrates right where it needs to be. You know, 99% of the time, I got to take my pliers and back it back out. So, I mean, and like I say, we designed it because of my wife, basically. You know, Payton had some of the hooks, and he had put them in a shaky head, and I told him we were catching really good on a football head. I said, put me some of them in a football head for Amy, for my wife, and I said, you know, give me a handful of them rigged up. I said, I think that hook will work in a jig, and it did. And I mean, it went to where, you know, here she's, you know, 110 pounds, you know, all 4'11" of her, and can't set the hook hardly at all. And she takes a 7.5 foot spinning rod and stabs every one of them son of guns through the top of the skull. I mean, and catches all of them, just doesn't lose many, you know. And as soon as we fished the first Thursday nighter together, and I thought, holy crap, she never lost one, not all night. You know, she caught probably a dozen fish and caught every one of them. And I immediately went home and I was like, hey, we need to get a bigger size in that hook too, so I can put some in a 1 ounce jig, some a little bit bigger. And we did so. And like I say, now it's in 99% of the jigs we put in the water. You know, it's that particular hook and setup. And it's nothing more than it hooks them all. Like I say, if you haven't tried one, you really need to, because you just don't miss many. You catch them all. You know, when you get a bite, he goes in the boat. And
you mentioned Baitworks. Make a couple announcements here real quick. We are going to be doing a $25 Baitworks gift card giveaway and we will. I wrote down a random number right here. Normally, the guest gets to pick the number, and we kind of
Is it random though? Is it random?
It is very random. It's just a random number. It's not my football jersey. It's definitely not the.
I have some.
It's definitely not the weight of bass I've caught in tournaments this year.
I have some significance on that number. So
you do, okay?
Yeah, so
well,
it's
good. It worked out good. But we'll make a reference to Sasquatch sometime during the live stream here towards the end, and whoever.
I'm going to say something before it's over with. So go ahead, spill the number. I'm going to run it for y'all. So go ahead.
You're good.
We got it written down here. It's secretly hid behind the stage here.
Closed doors.
In a in a sealed mayonnaise jar. Wait, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Lard, Crisco.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's see. One more announcement real quick. The Warrior William Fishing for Warriors tournament, October 13th and 14th out of Red Oak. I texted Jay Beffa today, and he said there's still about 8 spots available. So if somebody's looking to fish a really good tournament for a really good cause, that is something to be a part of. There's going to be awards dinner immediately following the tournament. Tons of giveaways, awesome silent auction items.
Somebody's speaking at that one too, aren't they?
Some very unique trophies and guaranteed 2,500 first place. And you're going to be speaking there. Is that correct?
I will speak there. Yes.
Okay. Is Lawson going to be there as well?
I'm better in live and in person. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. I don't know. Probably. Yeah. Yeah. We like it was. I went last year. What a great family. Holy crap. That's such a cool event, to go and be a part of. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I mean, it's really, really a very cool event.
I'm going to try to make it.
So if there's only a few spots left, you better get in it because it's good stuff. I mean, they put on a nice dinner, a nice banquet, give away a ton of prizes and stuff. I mean, it's really a cool situation. So yeah, if you're not there, I really want to say something really bad there, but no, you can't.
Not for this one. For the next one, you can.
For the next one, I will. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Don G asked. He said one of his favorite baits back in the day was a Guido bug. He said, "I bet that Dion's got a supply of them."
I do have a supply of them. I do have a pretty good supply of those Guido bugs. I still have a lot of the originals that we still have those molds. Every now and then we get a color that we can't get fixed, and get made, for mass production, and we still have to heat up the rubber and make our own some, So yep, I still got them, still believe in them.
I found a pack of them. I think I told this story last time you were on, or time before. I found a pack of them and some old stuff that I was going through. It's been a year or so ago, and I opened up that package and it still had. I think it still had the Walmart sticker on it of how much it costs. Like the green tag that Walmart used to stick on everything.
Yeah.
And it was probably bought in a bargain bin, probably somewhere my dad bought it. But it was gosh, still been cracked.
You guys don't realize that's been made for many, many years.
Oh, I know.
Way longer than you guys are old.
I got some too. We just moved into this house, and I was going through my fishing closet, cleaning out these old Plano boxes that I used to take. I used to take all my soft plastics out of the bag and just put them in a Plano box. This is a long time ago, and I got to looking around. There was all kinds of relics and antiques and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And there's some Guido bugs in there. I still got them. There's some Jean LaRue salt crawls, and they're in there on one side, and then there were some Guido bugs on the other side. And I saved it.
Well, yeah, you can't throw stuff away.
Yeah, no. Piece of history right there.
Big Mike says, "What jig trailer do you like on that hammer?"
What kind of jig trailer I like on a hammer? I vary a little bit. I use that bow hog deal quite a bit. Bow hog, and then that other daddy deal, something daddy.
Big
I had
Daddy.
I had it pulled up on my phone, but bow hog's a good one. I use about 3 of them. But Z Daddy, a nos crawl. The nos crawl is kind of you know, kind of, I use it some, but not as much as the bow hog or the bow crawl and the Z Daddy are my main ones. And then in the wintertime, I throw a crawdad. You know, here in another month or so, when that water temperature gets down in the 50s, I'll go back to a Gator bug of some sort on there.
What about colors?
Colors? It's hard to vary from your green pumpkins and your watermelons and stuff like that. I'm big on your natural colors, browns, greens, stuff like that. You know, darker the water, darker the colors. You know, I'll go to blacks and stuff like that. You know, but for the most part, day in, day out, you can't beat green pumpkin. I trim around. I put a little bit of color on the tips of my stuff a lot of times. You know, like a garlic marker or something like that. I'll put a little color back on the tail, tips of the tails a little bit. If I'm around bluegill, it's going to be chartreuse. If I'm around crawdads, it's going to be, you know, reds and oranges. So,
can you see that on your end?
Yep, I can.
Okay, so we're looking at here's the Z Daddy. So that's one of your go-tos.
One of my favorites. Z Daddy's is one of my favorites, and then this next one down, that one there that you just clicked on. That's right. That's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
It skips pretty good too. It's one of my ones that I put on to skip with. It's got a good flat side to it. It skips good. Our laminated colors now are pretty much second to none too. Our green pumpkin watermelon belly, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, and like that one there, that watermelon purple. There's lots of really pretty colors.
Is that grape 8?
Yeah, lots of pretty colors.
I like that green pumpkin. That what was it, GPO or something that you had? That looks good. A lot of them look good. I don't need any more soft plastics. Those two look good. I'm about to sink my John boat.
Yeah,
are those
this color right here, like you got on there right now, is the color that Jim Stamper was using on the back of his jig. You ought to look at that deal on the stuff on MLF. It shows Jim Stamper's jig, and he was throwing one kind of a natural perchy looking color with that color trailer on the back of it. And Jim Stamper is one of the older guys that I have fished against my whole life here. I mean, he is a fisherman.
Yeah, it's a good looking bait. So you can put that on a finesse jig or a full size jig. I would imagine you can maybe pinch it down a little bit.
Sure, absolutely.
You could probably Texas rig it too, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Looks like a punching bait. I could see punching in the grass too.
That's why you let the legs be swooped down so they could punch with it. So.
And then let's see. I'm trying to look at it. I've never actually got on their website and looked at all their stuff. There's the boat. There's the boat crawl. Okay.
That thing there in the wintertime, we throw it a ton on the back of like a hula grub type bait.
Huh. It's got some big old
boat crawl.
Okay.
It slows your stuff down, that's for sure.
Oh, I bet. It's kind of unique.
You're going to have to get off this, or I'm going to have to start buying tackle.
I know. So are they available at most of the tackle stores around there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, in this part of the world they are. Yeah.
Okay.
He does a great job. I mean, he really does. Bo works his ass off and does a really, really good job for the fishermen. Him and Lawson have to show up to the Wednesday nighters early just so he can distribute everybody's worms the color they wanted them, you know. So it's one of those deals, you know. He tries to cater to the fishermen as best he can.
Here's,
you know, get you what you need, whatever you want. So
Kobe says, do you fish the hammer jig shallow, deep, or one over the other? And you've got multiple weights in the hammer jig, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's from 3/8 up to 3/4.
Okay.
So yeah, I throw a I'm throwing a 3/8 right now. That's what I'm skipping with up under the docks. Is actually a half about 90% of the time.
Okay.
Not in a 1 ounce yet.
No, not for that.
Personally, it's in a 1 ounce.
Huh?
Is it
No.
personally?
No, that hasn't happened for, you know, to say we've needed anything like that recently.
Mm-hmm.
That's been 7-8 years ago since that happened really, really deep. You know, do I have a 1 ounce? Absolutely, I do. You don't, but I do.
Well, that's what I said. Personally, you have a 1 ounce.
But I don't. We don't have to use them right now, and we haven't had to the last few years. 3/4 plenty heavy for everything that we've had to deal with around here. And that's kind of a weird deal that's happening right now. Our Thermocline's really showing up real hard right now. And it's kind of strange. It's not as deep as I thought it would be with the way the clarity is. You know, so we haven't had to do much of that 30-foot stuff. You know, me and Lawson caught a few this summer, 20 and 25. But, you know, to say we've caught many 30, we really haven't, you know, haven't done much of that.
Where is that Thermocline at right now?
20.
Okay.
Our
crazy.
Thermocline around here is shallower too than it has been. I saw it in 12 foot, and you know,
and you can't fish if you fish below the Thermocline. That is no good.
No,
you can't do it. I mean,
it was
there's no oxygen down there.
It was at 10 foot where I was at on Sunday.
Yeah,
but it's a dirty lake. So
our lake's been clean all summer.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know how much rain we've had. We haven't had any rain, you know, and like I say, it's crazy how shallow it really is. How shallow it really is.
This lake that I fished on Sunday almost looked like it was either getting ready to turn over or had just turned over, which turning over right now doesn't make any sense because we haven't had the weather or the wind, anything to make it flip. But it was just kind of that milky green, just nasty color.
I don't think it's turned over.
No, I don't think so either. It had that appearance too.
It's that algae bloom.
Yeah,
that's how Cedar was today.
Cedar's
got a really.
I saw that in a spot or two on Lake of the Ozarks. I got up dirt shallow up in the 9 in a little flat bay, and if you hadn't known what the water temperature was, you would have swore, oh hell, let's turn it over here, because you know you had them chunks of that floating black looking gooey moss type stuff. There were chunks of that and everything, and I think the wind or something had just got in there and stirred that up off the bottom a little bit. It's there. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's, you know, when the water temperature gets to turnover time, it will. But I don't think that that's what's going on just yet.
Here's a question from South Jersey. He says, Dion, what has been more important to you when it comes to baits, color or action, and profile of the bait in all ranges of water clarity?
I like to focus on the profile a lot. You know, I want the profile to be perfect. I think you can take an ugly bait and still catch a fish, is what I'm saying. Do I think it's hard to not make your colors look right? No, it's not. So why not? You know, and when I say that, what I mean is, if you have a color, you know, if your jig skirt color has multiple colors in it, make sure the colors are on the back or on the belly where they're supposed to be. Okay. If it's a real light pale color, you don't want that on the back. You want the dark colors on the back. Okay. Your weed guard comes out this way. Okay. So this is the back of your jig. The belly of your jig is down here on the bottom. So you want your lighter colors down here on the belly and your darker colors on top. Every skirt company out there right now, your jigs, when you look at them, most of them's got 4 or 5 colors in them. Just make sure that the colors are in the right position on them, you know. You know, like I say, dark colors on the back, that's natural camouflage. If you're looking down in the water, you want to see it dark. Okay, if you're looking from the bottom looking up, you want to see light looking colors. That's natural camouflage. Dark on the back, light on the belly. So, you know, so my colors are not as important to me as the actual profile of the bait. You know, I want it to look like you know, the jig that I'm skipping around right now, it looks like a crawdad being chased, is what it looks like in the water. That's how my skirt's trimmed down real thin and stuff. Because, you know, when that crawdad goes through the water like this, kicking that tail, you want kind of the same profile. But when you stop it and you quit moving it, he kicks his legs out and he just floats to the bottom real easy. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying? That's the action that he's used to seeing, is that crawdad going choop, 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 choop across the surface. And then when he stops, the crawdad throws out all his legs and then he just kind of slowly floats to the bottom. So, you know, I try to imitate that with my jig. When I'm working it, you know, I try to make it look like that, you know. I trim it down pretty thin, you know. I don't use big long trailers. I don't use big wide trailers, you know. I try to make it look like that crawdad doing his deal, you know, and just think about that just a little bit. What does that fish see when he swims down there and looks at that thing? What is he used to seeing? You know, I do a lot of, you know, we got fish tanks in the shop. The shop where I work, we got fish tanks. We got crawdads in almost every one of them, and that's strictly for me. That's so I can watch them and look at them and see what they look like when they crawl around on them rocks and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, 99% of the time, you work your stuff too fast. 99% of us work our baits way too fast, you know. And that's even when there's a fish in there hunting that crawdad. He don't do a lot of moving around real fast. When he pulls up against a rock, he pulls up against that rock, and that's protection. And he backs up against it really hard, and he sits there. And he'll sit there real motionless until that fish gets in front of him. That fish gets in front of him, and then he'll slowly throw them claws up as if to say, hey, don't eat me. Well, that doesn't work too good, you know, because he can suck a crawdad about that far, you know. But you just got to think about how you're working your lure a lot of times. And, you know, it's a lot more the presentation and how I work my bait in, you know, than the actual look of it, you know. But like I say, it's not hard to make one look right. Just make sure your dark colors are on the back, light colors on the belly. You know, bluegills, dark on the back, light on the belly. You know, that old pearly looking color on the belly needs to be down on the bottom part of your jig when you're throwing it. You know, same way with your trailers. You know, everything's laminated anymore. I mean, you don't hardly have anything that's not got a laminated color to it. Make sure you put your crawdads on there correctly, you know, and your trailers, make sure they look right. So just, you know, think about that. You know, next time you're rigging your jig up, just make it look right.
What's the little things that may get you one more bite, and that one more bite may be the 4.5 pounder that you needed to call out a 12 inch for the day?
It's when he swims up to it and he finally, he's looking around that pile of brush and he's hunting. You know, you can know one thing about a bass. He's hunting full time. And when he sees that crawdad, what's the last thing he sees? For the most part, he sees those claws go up in the air a little bit to try to ward him off. Okay? Well, if your claws up here are all green pumpkin, that's not real. I mean, there is no crawdad you can find in the wild that the colors on the tips of his pinchers are a totally different color than the rest of his body. He's green pumpkin from here down. But right there, that last little fingernail part up there on the end, it's a brighter color of some sort. It can be, I've seen it be yellow. I've seen it be black even. But it's always a totally different color than the rest of his body. By gosh, boys, it's not rocket science. Take a Sharpie and put a little color up there. You know, most time on a crawfish, it's a bright color. It's a red or a chartreuse or even an orange, stuff like that. Don't give him an excuse not to bite it. You know, when I look down at a plate of food, you know, of course I go ahead and gobble it right on up. But if you sit down and you look at a plate of food and you realize something's just not quite right there, you don't just stick your fork in it and go on eating, okay? Unless you're overweight and big like me. But for the most part, you don't go ahead and take a bite of it. That's the same way that fish is looking. When he chases up behind a shad, how many times have you seen him run up on your spinnerbait, get that close to it, and just go, no, and turn away? You know why? Because that little tail that's kicking on the back of that trailer as it's swimming away from him, it's not dark. It's not a little black tail. And you know why it's not a little black tail? Because we don't make them. We don't make one. There's not one made that is the proper color for a shad's tail. A shad's tail is black, okay, or dark gray. He has a white body, and the last little thing kicking along behind him is a little grayish black tail. That's the last thing he sees before that bass goes and eats him, okay? It's not rocket science. If my Zoom fluke goes in the lake and it's a tough bite, now when it's easy, it doesn't matter. When it's easy, who cares? They're going to bite it because it looks like a shad. But when they're not biting it and it's hard, take an extra 10 seconds and take the same Sharpie marker that you sign an autograph with, and you put a little dark on the tail of that thing, because that's the last thing he sees, is that little tail swimming away from him, And I see it happen daily on top waters, swim baits, stuff like that, Just think about what that fish is seeing. Most of the time, he doesn't hit it head first. He pursues it, comes up behind it and grabs it, okay? Then he'll spit it out and swallow it head first, but he has to catch it first. Think about the last thing he sees, And like I say, on a crawdad, tips of them pinchers, right when he's swooping down there to get it, he sees them pinchers rise up and, there's a little bit brighter color. The tail on that shad swimming away from him, little old dark looking tail. Tail on a bluegill, chartreuse, he's a bright color. When a bluegill swims away from you, you see that little chartreuse yellowy tail swimming away from you. Why not make your stuff look good? Don't give him an excuse not to go ahead and take a hold of it. Some of the easiest baits to manipulate are the ones that you just think, I don't have to, you throw a watermelon fluke out there. That looks like a bluegill, good enough. Yeah, it really does. You put a chartreuse tail on it. You put a little bit of chartreuse back there on that V part of that tail. Now it looks good. It looks exceptional. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm paranoid as all hell when it comes to my soft plastics. I put eyeballs on my flukes and stuff like that. I mean, I take the time to paint them up right, especially when it ain't easy. I throw a big old Kitech. Here in another month or so, I'm going to start throwing a big Kitech around here. And guess what? It's got eyeballs. It's got shad dot. Why not take the extra time and make it look perfect? Make it look like a big old gizzard shad.
And it doesn't take that much time, really. No. If you got the stuff, you can sit down and
take a marker.
Press it up.
Take a marker. Take your dip and dye. A Q-tip. It doesn't take hardly anything.
Well, at the end of the day, you're not everybody's doing that. Everybody else is just putting them out of the package. And now you have something that they saw 1,000 Kitechs go by, and now this one looks
just a little bit different, a little more natural.
It looks a little more natural.
It looks a little more natural.
And like you said, one more bite. One more bite's all you want.
I sit and I watch them shad get together and everything. And when one shad takes off by himself, you tell me what you notice the next time. You notice that shad dot. You can see that dot swimming away on the side of that shad. It's just it's what you see, Now, does a bass see that like I see it? I would assume he does, but you see that shad dot, a lot of times. And it's just what does that bass see before he eats your bait,
Well, I think about cruisers in the spring and post spawn. When you see a bass up there, what do you see? You see that black on his tail.
Yep.
Swimming away. It's just natural, right? I mean, that's and I was thinking about what I do in the spring of the year when the water you can't see down in 2 inches is I'll put orange on my green pumpkin. I'll throw green pumpkin when it's just nasty, dirty water, and I'll put orange on it. But when that water clears up, I don't do anything to it. It should be just the opposite. They don't see it as well when there's so much silt and mud in their face.
They see silhouettes.
What's that?
They see silhouettes.
Yeah, but I'm
I'm
Yeah,
putting
the
orange on
outline
it
of
when
your jig.
they see silhouettes, and I'm leaving it green pumpkin when it's 4 or 5 foot visibility. I'm ass backwards.
It's not hard. It's not hard to get lazy. I can tell you that right now.
Absolutely.
And I throw a jig a lot. Okay, and there's nobody on the planet besides my sons that take any more time with a jig than I do. I mean, I take my time. I paint it up right. I make it look good, and that's important to me when I put it in the lake. That it looks perfect to that fish, and and that's what I do. That's what I'm into. If I had to say, okay, there's one thing I do a lot of, it's throw a jig, and so I'm going to take that extra time to make it look right. Where you might be into buzz baits, or you might be into swim baits or glide baits and stuff like that. I'm into jigs. I mean, that's my deal.
So you talk about a glide bait. What does a glide bait do really, really well? Looks like what it's supposed to be, right?
It looks like
It's got a $200 paint job on it.
It looks like a dying shad.
It looks like a gizzard shad. Well, you're throwing a hairy little critter on the bottom of the lake that's supposed to look like a crawdad. Well, by God, make it look like a crawdad.
Take an extra second, make it look right.
And it's a heck of a lot cheaper to put a jig on the bottom of the lake than it is some of those glide baits.
Yeah. Lawson or Payton had one. Payton had one of those glide baits in his hand from the Japanese cat that ended up second. Payton was cameraman.
Oh yeah.
In the BASS. Followed that kid and got up there and was gonna film him. And by the time they got to him, he had about 12 pounds. And as soon as he pulled in, the kid knew of me and Dad and everything, because we used to go to Japan a lot, And he said, "Oh man," he said, "this is gonna be cool." He says, "I'm gonna let one of my heroes get to see something that we don't normally pull out." Payton says, "You got a cool glide bait?" And he said, "Because if you do," he says, "I'm taking one of them from you." And the guy says, "Oh no, I'll give you one. I'll give you one." Payton's like, "Yeah, I'd like to see one." He pulls out his glide bait out of the box and gonna give Payton one, gonna give it to him. And Payton's like, "Well, fish the damn tournament, finish." He said, "Oh, I got 3." He said, "I got 3." He said, "I'm good." And needless to say, Payton, he gives him one. And Payton says, "Dude, you don't have to do that." He says, "It's the last day of the tournament. What am I going to do?" And he stands up, goes back over to the docks, ties on one straight out of the package, stands up, catches a 5.9 on his first dock. He throws it down.
Really?
So Payton's like, "Oh, looky here. This is going to be something to see, 3 docks later, he catches a 5-pounder. And the next cast he makes after catching the second 5-pounder, he throws out there and breaks his glide. And Payton's like, "Oh, my bait's gone. Now I don't get one," And the kid told him, he says, "Oh, I'll give you one when we get to the weigh-in. Don't worry about it. I'll give you one." And needless to say, Payton said he said to look at it, he said, "It don't look enough different." He said, "If I handed it to you and," he said, "didn't tell you that it came from a Japanese guy," he said, "you would not give it a second look." He said, "It looks just like all the rest."
Mm-hmm.
But he said it did work nice. He said when he pulled it through the water, it just back and forth ever so easy, and he said that guy, he said that little kid can fish. He said he'll damn sure be something someday. He said because he's a good little old fisherman.
Yeah, those Japanese anglers, man, they've got some tricks up their sleeves. I mean, we think we got pressure in our lakes around here.
Yeah.
It's like 20 times the pressure over there in some of those lakes.
Yeah. What's this?
Any shot colors? Anything
like bright,
loud, wild? Do you ever use anything, any shot colors on your baits?
I'm a big believer in bubble gum in the springtime. I throw a floating worm quite a bit, throw methylate, around here quite a bit, and throw bubble gum. Is it good any time other than the spring? I've heard of guys throw on yellow in the fall and stuff like that. And, and different colors like that. I really don't. I throw bubble gum in the spring some, and I've got yellow, I've got orange, I've got white, I've got everything under the sun. But it seems like if I'm going to catch them on it in the spring, it'll be bubble gum or maybe methylate. And like I say, it's always around the spawn. I never just find myself out there throwing a yellow worm down the bank and catching them. Davey Height would, skin me for saying that because he throws a yellow floating worm about 80% of the time. But anyway, it's not one of my big deals. Okay.
Yeah, Jay. Was it Takuito that's got the secret smelly
the
Japanese
squid
jelly stuff?
smelly
Squid something.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna tell you right now, and it's always been my opinion that a bass's sniffer is his last resort. Does he swim up there and go? No, he doesn't. He doesn't do that. He uses his other senses more than anything else. If they're sniffing on my lure before I get to them, I need to go find some easier ones to catch. I mean, those are too hard for me. So, do I believe in keeping my hands clean? Yep.
Yeah.
I carry a bar of soap in my boat. If I get in the morning, and I take my motor toter off or something like that, I feel like I got some gas on my hands or something, I'll wash my hands. So many of these worms, you carry a worm around in the boat for a year or so, and they get that old strong oil all over them and stuff like that. Sometimes I don't like that, so I'll wash my hands and try to clean some of that stuff off. But like I say, can I say that I haven't seen it work? Yeah, I've seen it work, but to say that I have to have it in my boat to know that I'm going to have a decent fishing day, no. I think his sniffer's pretty low on the totem pole of things that he's worried about when it comes to getting your bait and eating it.
That lateral line helps out a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes. He feels your bait. He sees your bait. He eats your bait.
Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't see it, feel it, and then swim over there to it and go. No, he's not a coon dog. He's not doing that. No, he's going to club it. If it looks right, it's right. He's going to eat it.
Well, and you talk about that, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but we see it now, right? When they go, woo, and they stop and then they turn away. That's because it didn't look right. He didn't smell it. I feel like it's because it didn't look right.
Yeah. I don't think he went up there and that that bait had bad breath or nothing like that.
Right.
No, that's not it.
Right.
It's not that.
I think that I secretly think they just like screwing with us now that we got all this technology. They got it out for us.
God, I hope they do. I mean, what fun would it be if they didn't?
Exactly.
I mean,
and what they do is they send a little 12-incher up there to get us, and then
I feel like God's up there going, let me twist around on this a little bit. Let me change this a little bit. Okay, they're getting better at this. Watch this. I'm just going to change shit. I really believe that happened.
If you don't have a sense of humor about it, what do we got? I mean,
that's right. I mean, you can't catch them all. I mean, don't try. But anyways, okay.
I know Dion's going to be there. Justin said you all going to be around Friday. Love to get a picture with you guys. I guess he's talking about the
bash this weekend,
Warrior William, or the bash.
Probably the bash this weekend.
Yeah. I won't be there, but I'm sure
we'll be around there somewhere. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're selling Hibdon's hammers at every avenue.
There you go.
So yeah, we're doing it.
Hey Chris, go back and watch the very beginning of this live stream.
Yep.
Because we talked about LiveScope for
more than
20 minutes.
More than Dion wanted.
We covered it a lot. We covered it a lot.
More than I want to talk about. Yeah.
It'd be worth checking out. What's your guess on the exact weight? All three of us. Let's guess an exact weight
do this
to
every
win
year.
the big bass bash. I'm going, since it's fishing kind of tough, I'm going 672 is what I'm going.
Dion?
No, you're next.
Okay, 701.
701. Oh shit! I was going to get close to that. Okay, 702.
Oh,
this Price is Right.
Price
man.
is Right.
Price is Right.
rules.
Well, I'm just telling you, it's gonna happen. There's too many big ones out there, and I guess too big every year. Every year I guess too big, and I really think it's gonna happen. I mean, we've been catching a lot of really pretty fish. I mean, Peyton caught a 6-pounder the first and second day of the 2-day BFL. So these guys are probably right. Probably won't take but a 6, a little over 6, but we're catching some fish right now that are really blowed up and beautiful and fat and healthy. Those gizzards are up on the bank. I mean, they could get full in a blink right now.
Well,
So,
I think what we talked about early on in the stream, that perfect storm is about to happen this weekend.
it could. This could be one of them years where it just blows open and there's more 5-pounders caught than any other time.
Well, what I'm thinking is you got a bunch of fish that are waiting in the wings, right? They're wanting to be there, and all it's going to take is that cold snap on Thursday.
Little dab of that cool rain. I mean, come in, cool that water temperature down a degree or two.
I think it might be caught on Sunday too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anybody that goes out there for one day, you're an idiot. Just because they fish it hard the first day, that just makes him get positioned just right for the second day.
Yeah, I think the second day, because it'll be a couple of days after that front, it'll be settling down. They'll be that water temperature will be starting to get right.
There could be some fog out there, and Brad's saying the fog is going to be bad.
And for God's sakes, just freaking don't go nowhere.
Slow down.
You're not going to be in no hurry either. Everybody else ain't going to be in a hurry. If it's foggy, just hang out, fish.
There's going to be one jackass that's going to be in a
fish
hurry.
everywhere in that lake.
Yes.
The cove you're in, while it's foggy is just as good of a cove as the next one down.
I tell you what, because if you don't make it back because you're laying up in a hospital
win.
Or you're dead, you ain't gonna win anyway.
Right. It's a fishing tournament.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but there's only gonna be one person really, really happy.
Yeah.
Then there's gonna be some other people that are okay, but oh well, I was really close. But the thing of it is, you take all those people and you throw them out there at the same time. Use some common sense. Everybody just use their head. Think about it.
Right.
If there's one question I get asked more than anything, and have in the last 2.5 weeks, where can I win this tournament? You can win this tournament on Lake of the Ozarks anywhere you stop your boat.
Yep.
That's how well our lake is fishing right now. They're everywhere. I mean, I've heard of 20-pound stringers up by the upper dam. And I've heard of 20-pound stringers in the Gravois. I've heard of 20-pound stringers. Jim Dill was fishing out of Red Oak when he caught 26 pounds. You just got to keep one thing in mind. This lake is fishing extremely well. And when I say it's fishing well, they're everywhere and they're biting, like I say, wherever you are, if the fog's got you pinned down, put your bait in the water, get to fishing. There's nothing like when it's good and dark when that fog's on the water. I like winding my flopper along and seeing that fog spin coming off of my flopper blade, and stuff like that, and trust me, it's a cool time to be out there in the fog, fog does something to them, makes them crazy.
You know what else that fog can do this weekend, especially in the Ozarks?
What?
He could bring out a Sasquatch.
You
never know. You never know. They like the cover of the darkness. Hey, I got it. So before we stop this stream, I want to get everybody's bait choice, what they think it's going to be one on. But we're talking about Sasquatch. I was thinking about you. Friday. So I had a BFL in Kentucky Lake, and my buddy had a cabin on the LBL side, right? And I was gonna stay up at Ken Lake, which is on the west side of the lake, which is safe on the west side of the lake.
Yeah,
and
I don't think he crosses the bridge.
That's a long swim, and
long way.
So but I was going to have to make a 40-minute drive up there to Ken Lake to stay in this place. Well, my buddy, the guy that he was going to stay with, or the guy that was going to stay with him, backed out. So he said, "Hey, I got a spot over here. It's a really small cabin. It's in, I think it was called Piney Campground." I said, "Where's it at?" And he said, "It's in the LBL." And I'm like, "Oh man, okay, well."
Gates said, "Hell no!"
He said, "It's only $50 a night. It doesn't have a shower. It's 2 beds and a picnic bench. That's it, and electricity. It's basic." So I'm like, "All right,
for $50 a night. Still?
I like $50. Well, heck, I mean, $25 a head, that ain't bad."
We
So
stayed in some worse places.
So anyway, I go over there. We had to make some adjustments. I had to go to Walmart and get a air mattress because the mattress that was on these bunk beds was flat as a pancake. It was felt like I was sleeping on a diaper. It was wrapped in one of those waterproof whatever, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said it's not going to work. So we go to Walmart. We get the air mattress, get it set up, and when I put that air mattress on top of the other mattress, I could not even squeeze in there, just barely. I had about a foot.
Because you were on a bunk bed.
It was on a bunk bed. So anyway, I took the old mattress off, put it in there. I'll get back to
about Dion.
I'll get back to that later. So anyway, with that air mattress, I still only had about a foot and a half to sleep in. I'm halfway claustrophobic, so I was a little bit nervous. But my alarm goes off. Well, actually, my the guy I was staying with, Brad, his alarm goes off in the morning. I thought it was 5. I was going to get up at 5. So, long story short, I go to jump out of the bed because I thought it was my phone, and I jacked my head as hard as you could possibly jack your head on that bunk. I got a scab on top of my head.
Oh,
so I'm up. I didn't go back to bed. It was actually like 4:15 in the morning. I was supposed to get up at 5. So he's hitting snooze. I get up and go outside to take a leak because we had to walk. We didn't have a bathroom. We would have to walk all the way to shower house. So there ain't nobody up in the campground. Everybody was partying and stuff. They're all asleep. So I'm out there. I found a tree and I'm out there and it's pitch black and it's kind of just eerie. And I'm thinking about the old LBL Sasquatch story with Hayden back in that creek that you told last year. And I peed really fast and I got back in the cabin, but man, I was nervous, because this place is way back a little road. You go 3 or 4 or 5 miles back a road to get to where we're at.
Hear any rocks clinking together and stuff?
No, I didn't. I did not. I survived.
He was singing a song in his head, "Don't Eat Me" or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you ain't gonna convince that big hairy dude that I'm related to that something was not back in there.
It's kind of like a big old bass. He doesn't worry about what you smell like. He's just hungry, right?
Yeah. When you're 8 foot tall and 900 pounds, you can eat.
That's right. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's right. So we got a winner, Perry. Congratulations, Perry. So I want to get everybody's guess on the actual bait. You got to go first this time on the bait. Last year, I think I got the closest. I guessed shaky head, and it was one on the Hibdon hammer jig.
Yeah.
This is the fall tournament. I think you had Dion guessed a spinner bait. I can't remember what you guessed.
I'm gonna go.
Said a frog.
I'm gonna go off the wall here, and it's gonna be like a Demiki style bait. It's gonna be a shad bait.
Really?
Yep.
Like a LiveScope deal?
LiveScope deal.
Really? Okay. I'll write down a Demiki then. That would be interesting.
You're up.
Because you don't hear a lot of 7-pounders caught on a minnow. You hear some 5. Well, I saw 513 caught this weekend.
Force feed it.
I'm gonna go with a I'm gonna go with a buzzbait. I'm kind of going out on a limb. I'm just thinking with this change, the water could cool down maybe 6-7 degrees. That's kind of a lot, but even if it cools down 4 or 5 degrees, if it gets down to mid 70s, Dion's saying the gizzard chat are already up there. Some of those bigger bass slide up there and the water temperature cools down. I could see somebody slinging a big buzzbait around like whatever and catching some. I'm gonna go buzzbait.
I'm gonna say a jig.
Okay.
It's just gonna happen again. I mean, there's too many guys throwing it right now, and too much talk about it, and those BASS guys really wrecked them on a jig. I mean, they caught a lot of those live scopers were catching them on a big jig too, you know. So I'm gonna stick with a jig.
We're gonna get technical and say color, black or white buzzbait.
I'm going with black.
Okay.
I'll even throw a gold blade on there. I mean, if we want to get real technical.
Jig and a brush pile.
In the Niangua.
Green pumpkin.
Green pumpkin. Okay.
Shad color. I don't know. Like
Phil says it's spook.
It could be. I mean, a walking bait's a big bait here. I mean, we catch a lot of big fish on it.
Stephanie says
There's-
black and silver.
The thing of it is, you can't go wrong here. I mean, you're going to catch them on lots of different baits. I mean, when, you know, I've emceed the tournament a time or two and went over there to the weigh-in and stuff, and you can't believe the things that people tell you, you know, that they catch them on and stuff, you know.
well, somebody's gonna watch the show tonight, and somebody's gonna take one of those little shad imitation baits, and they're gonna paint it up real pretty like. They're gonna put a black tail on it and a shad dot, and they're gonna catch a 701. I mean, that's.
I think it could be a glide bait too, is the
Yeah,
thing.
it
There's
could,
a
yeah.
lot of people own them now. I mean, a lot of people have them now, and it is a really, really pretty big bass bait. Simple as that. Looks good. It does the right thing. You know, it's the perfect imitation of a big old slow shad moving along.
And you know what I like about it is you can really see it on LiveScope. You don't have to be very good with LiveScope to be able to see that big
Yeah,
honking thing down there.
Phil says
Yeah.
the Devil's Horse.
it could be.
Would be
I've
nice.
caught a lot of bass on Devil's Horse here in my day. Many.
The guy that won spring caught
It was
his
a
fish
Ned
on a
rig.
Ned rig. Yeah.
Yep.
Really? Yeah, there's no doubt.
We're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah.
we're talking
I
about
know.
8-inch glide baits, and he caught it on a little 3-inch piece of plastic
Yeah.
that looks like nothing.
Oh, I know Ned. Everybody thinks that's funny, but oh yeah, Ned Katie's was one of my dad's best friends. He's still a huge friend of the family. And my dad used to guide him and Rob Bollinger, a guy that he traveled with a little bit. And Ned said there are no tough days fishing. There's just days you don't try hard enough. And trust me, it might get down to Ned throwing 4-pound line and a 1/8 ounce marabou jig to catch them, but he would figure out how to catch them.
Huh.
And so a Ned rig, yep, that's his type of stuff. You know,
I wonder if he had any idea what kind of craze that he would start with.
Oh, I guarantee you, he'd been catching them on it for years.
Yeah.
He's one of them ones that he probably never said a word for years about it. You know, he had some of them good little heads, and he probably just thought, I bet you that'd look good, you know, and yeah, I guarantee you he fished for it for years before anybody else got to see one, I promise you.
He has a video out there it's been around for a while, but he talks about all the different ways to fish the Ned rig, you know, swimming it, kind of lifting it, just dragging it. And I think he had like 6 different ways that he fished it.
Ned Katie's one of the better fishermen I've ever been to boat with. I mean, you know, he's the caliber of my ancestors, my grandpa, my uncles, my dad. That's the caliber guy he is. Oh yeah, you know. But went to college, taught school. You know, that's what he did. You know, he's a professor. So wrote stories about it. So, but he's a great guy, awesome guy. So
Based at a big chatterbait. That's a new one. 2.8 Kitech.
I think they got to slow down a little bit. I think them old biggins are not, they're going to have to pick up the pace from what they have been. Let's put it that way. You know, it seemed like if I caught one on a top water in the last couple of weeks, it was very slow. Or I pulled it right by a piece of brush and he got it right there. It wasn't like he hit it 5 foot from a piece of brush. No, he hit it right next to it, you know. And that's just warm weather. They're just not chasing hard. They're not running after stuff and chasing stuff. So, you know, that's kind of my opinion on that. So you throw a chatterbait and you get it away from them too fast. I mean, That's kind of a killer for me. At least the top water, you can slow it down. You can work a spook type bait real slow and pause it and stuff like that, and still make them bite.
You're making me second guess my buzzbait choice now.
Oh yeah, that's the only reason I didn't pick it. They're just not chasing that great.
Yeah.
Are they going to? They could. It could be wide open, by the time that tournament rolls around, but it hasn't been so far.
I'm just ready for them to get real dumb.
It's gonna happen.
I know, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm like everybody else. I just
it did happen.
I'm real dumb, so I just want to.
It happened the weekend before the 2-day BFL. It was dumb. It was crazy. I mean, Jim Dill had 5 that weighed 26.
Right.
And it was hot. It was hot. But we'd had a few of them cool nights.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing you know, they decided they're eating the top water. And they did, by golly. It was crazy. But I guarantee you there was 30 stringers over 20 pounds that weekend in local tournaments.
It was just short-lived.
Yes, it just didn't happen long. Turned around every day before the 2-day BFL was right at 90 degrees. And,
it's been 90 degrees all week here. I mean,
and the nights were hot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a little stretch there where it was getting down in the 50s at night for about 5 or 6 nights in a row, getting down to 50s. Every morning I drove to work, it was foggy, down on the water. And like I say, now that it's turned around and going the other direction, it's just, too dang hot. And those fish ain't in there with them. They're not in there with the food.
Right.
Are they going to get that away? Yep, they are eventually. Because I went down today. We had to help my boss out on his boat dock today. So we walked down to his boat dock and helped him get his boat on the hoist. And when we did, big old gizzards up there cruising along the bank. And I'm like, holy crap, this is going to happen right in front of us. It's going to happen big time. But like I say, it's just not quite right just yet. It's got to cool off just a little tiny bit. Get them ones that stand out there in that 6 to 8 foot range in a pile of brush to go up on the bank and start looking for food. So
I think that's what's going on around here too. I saw a lot of bait in the grass, not everywhere. I'd say three of the 10 or 12 stretches of grass that I fished had a pretty good amount of bait in there, but I just don't think the big ones have quite moved in there. But I think they're close. I think they're in the area. I think they're just waiting for that water temp to drop, maybe 5 or 6 degrees, and I think it could happen.
I think just any drop in it and it stays consistent
because it's been going up. It's been going up. It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
It was 75 to 77, and now it's been 79 to 82.
It was 83 at the lake.
It's going the wrong way. Yeah. So when it starts going the other way, it ain't going to take much. It just falls a couple degrees. That's just my opinion, but I think
gets them started.
I think it's right there.
All it needs.
What did it take to win the Kentucky Lake tournament that you fished?
It took JCat 18 something. I netted over 18 pounds of bass for him, and then it was 18 the second day, so 32, two-day derby. But the guy in second place was like 7 or 8 ounces behind him, so it was neck and neck.
Yeah.
Did it fall off pretty quick after that, though?
Yeah, I think 12th, 10, 11, 12th place was probably 20 something, low 20s. But I tell you what, that lake has really come back. I was with arguably the best guy in the lake right now. We went out of Paris and we fished right in front of his house. He lives, if you just went down the shoreline, he lives probably 1,000 yards from Paris Landing. So he's right there. So we fished within 5 miles of that area. So I feel comfortable saying I fished with one of the top couple guys in that little stretch of the lake.
Yeah.
But he caught 3 limits of keepers. you know, he culled up to 18 pounds, and he was throwing back
Smallmouth, largemouth.
A mix, mostly smallmouth, but there was plenty. He had a 513 largemouth. But the lake is healthy. Just watching him catch 2.5, 2 3/4, and 3.25 pound fish, and catching several of them, and he had some smaller, you know, like 14 inchers mixed in there, but it was cool to see somebody catch that many fish, and it made me feel good about that Kentucky lake is coming back for sure, because it was down. I mean, you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done what he did 3-4 years ago. It was a grind just to get some bites. But
you wouldn't have done that a year ago.
Yeah, it's changed.
Yeah.
You know, the shad population has really made a comeback. We didn't see a whole lot of Asian carp. There's still some in there. They're always going to be in there, but it wasn't like when you were scanning, you just saw Asian carp everywhere. Yeah. You'd see some bait, and you'd see some bass and white bass mixed in there.
Yeah.
But the quality of fish is, you know, it's getting a lot better. It feels like you're around fish more. You used to be like, you felt like there wasn't a fish in the whole lake. You just fished for people would literally. I know my buddy had a place down on Bee Springs for 15 years, and he sold it like 3 or 4 years ago because he got tired of going out and not even getting a bite. You know, he'd fish for 8 hours and not even get a bite. That's how tough it was. Now you're going to get a bite if you just keep your head down. You're gonna catch some of those 14 inchers, 14.5-inch fish, and it's made a comeback. We just get some grass. If they get some grass in that lake, I think it'll be. I'm not going to say it's going to be what it was 15 years ago, but it'll be somewhere in between what it is now and what it was 15 years ago.
It'll give a hiding spot for some of those fish to grow.
Yeah, exactly. It's healthy.
I hope it comes back, you know, because it sure took a lot of pressure off this lake, you know, this time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the bigger tournaments would go over there also instead of everything coming to here. Now, I mean, every weekend there's something big coming to here, you know. So it'd be nice if it would come back around and get going again good. That way there's not so much pressure here.
Yeah, it's funny. Jake was saying, he said, I really feel bad for saying this. He had 18 pounds in the box, but he said, the lake's fishing really tough today. And I told him, I said, well, you ought to be back here standing where I'm at if you want to talk about the lake's fishing really tough today.
Yeah.
He got a kick out of that because, you know, I was sniffing fumes all day.
Oh, I'm telling you, there's a lot of them co-anglers do not like it at all. I mean,
he was a super, super good dude, though. We had a great day, and I would have rather been in the situation I was in versus Table Rock, where you're out there throwing an A-rig or a jerkbait with LiveScope. You know, you're out in 40, 50 foot of water, and they're catching them 20 feet
You
down.
could at least get to the bottom of the lake.
At least I was throwing and dragging on some hard stuff, and it felt good. You know, I set the hook on a rock every once in a while because it felt good. But I felt like I was around some fish where you get hung out there and you're, you know, 300 yards off the bank out in the middle of nowhere, and the boat's in 100 foot of water.
And they're
really
targeting one fish that's suspended out there. Yeah,
right.
That makes it
that's
tough.
a really tough place to be in the back of the boat.
yeah, sure.
Well, let's wrap this up, man. I really appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with us. It's always
Anytime,
a lot of
boys.
fun. I love the stories, man. I love the back in history stories. That's, like you said, that stuff's slowly going away, and it's good to capture that and good to relive all that. Any closing thoughts or any shout outs or anything before we wrap it up?
Just, you know, we've talked a bunch of stuff tonight about LiveScope and stuff like that. People, go do what you want to do. Go fishing. Nobody's breaking your arm, making you go do it. You know, just because we do it, it doesn't make it a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's fishing. You know, should they have outlawed buzz baits? You know, 30 years ago. You know, should the Cinco have been taken off the market? You know, where would it stop? You know, at what juncture do you put up a block and say, okay, we can't do this? Because that's what it's going to take for something like that to get knocked down. It's going to take something like that. And where does it stop? Then, you know, you can't stop it. It's it's evolving right in front of us. We're seeing it, we're watching it. We'll be able to tell our kids about it someday, and hopefully we'll laugh about it and say, oh yeah, but that was so old school, catching them on that LiveScope, now they reel them in for us, basically, we don't even have to touch them, those savage fish, I haven't been scuffed by a fish in months, but
those teeth are going to grow bigger and stronger.
That's right. If it, well, it's just a good thing. If a spotted bass grew to be 100 pounds, they'd have to put warning signs on swimming beaches. I mean, you'd read about them in the newspaper, another 8-year-old taken down by a spotted bass on Lake of the Ozarks, that's the way it would be.
Lost a toe. He lost his toe, but he got back in the boat. He barely survived.
He barely made it back in. So, yeah. No, and I don't like to be confrontational with anything about that for one reason. I like to fish. I just like to catch them, and I'm no different than anybody else out there. Do I miss the way it used to be? Sure. Absolutely I did, because I got to see the best of it. And, me and Peter T, I went down and I spent almost 2 weeks with Peter T in Florida this year. And we didn't do nothing. We did absolutely nothing. We fished a little tiny bit, but basically we spent 2 weeks just doing nothing. And one of the things that we discussed was that we were lucky enough to live through the good stuff. And we got to see the good times. We got to see the way the sport was meant to be, and the way it is and the way it's changing. It's just different. We don't have to like it. It's just different. It's just the way things are going, Adapt or die, get out of the way, because here it comes. It's happening, and like I say, I don't want to offend anybody with my attitude on it, but that's just the way it is,
I tell you what, you said it well there. We all have one common goal in life, and that's as a fisherman at least, and it's that tick, that thump, that reeling one in. Like, I don't care how you do it, whether you're a trout bum and you saw him eat your fly on the top of the lake or the river, or if you're fishing at Lake of the Ozarks and you scanned underneath the dock, you skipped your jig under there, you watched him follow the bottom, he still hit it, you still watched him do it, and then you got the enjoyment of reeling it in and having some fun doing it. I don't care how you do it. Hell, if you get your rocks off by dropping a stick of dynamite down there, I really don't care. Like, as long as you're having fun, you don't get caught, go for it.
I've got a spot or two I'd like to do that on.
I know, me too.
They're not mine. They're Marcus's, but I'd sure like to see it happen. Just want to see one just poof, water foam up, No.
You want to make sure he's there watching, though, right?
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
He's side scanning his brush.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it right next to him. I'm not gonna wait till he's somewhere else.
Absolutely.
No, I'm gonna throw it at his boat, and try to make him catch it, But
well, see, if you throw it in his boat, then he has to throw it out, and then
that's right. That's right. We I've been talked to several times, about what happened with me and the boys, all making the top cut in the BFL, a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And don't think we take that for granted. We really don't. We realize how special that really is.
Yeah, I had that written down. It didn't come up, so I'm glad you brought that up.
That was very cool for us. I can only hope and pray that Dad's watching and seeing all that take place. Because he was so proud of his grandsons. To do what they did when he was alive. When he got to watch them. And the way they're fishing now and everything. I'm pretty sure he's pretty happy dude, wherever he's at.
I bet you were pretty proud too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The only thing scares me about what happened to Dad is there is going to be no place up there that ain't bruised up by the time we get there. I mean, I guarantee you he has sore mouth every damn fish in heaven. There is no way around it. Between him and his best friend, the crazy thing about it is one of his best fishing buddies passed away last year. A couple years ago too, and I thought, son of a gun, there's another one of them fish catching son of a guns that's gonna bruise them all up before I get to go.
They're up there live scoping.
That's right. Yeah, Let's not go there. If they're live scoping at me.
Hey, and they had it like 4 years before us,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and they're experts now.
Yes,
Dialed in.
They got LiveScope 36 already. So
that's right.
All right, let's
All
wrap
right,
this up.
boys.
Man.
Well, I appreciate you.
we appreciate you.
Appreciate y'all having me on there and give me the opportunity to speak to everybody. And like I say, I hope everybody has a good time this weekend and catches them all
Be safe.
a 7-2, 7-2,
701.
7-2 in the Big Bass Bash. So hey, what do we win for that? If I guess right.
Some Hibdon hammer jigs. I think that's
Oh,
what
yeah,
that's
okay.
what he's talking about. wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
it? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's on you.
One
Yeah.
one
Yeah,
ounce
I know it's on me. Yeah, there's no doubt.
1 ounce Hibdon. hammer
Oh,
jigs.
whoa.
1 ounce. Oh,
The
I'm
pride
not
of
ready.
stash.
I'm not ready to let everybody see that just yet.
Those are in a safe underneath his bed.
All right,
Oh,
some
That's
Guido
right.
bugs. How about that?
I got Guido bugs.
There
I
we
can
go.
handle you there.
all right. See you,
All right,
Dion.
boys.
Take care,
Have
man.
a good evening. Bye.
Later.